Patricia Kendall. She's a director at Merkle. She has over 18 years of experience in digital analytics, online marketing, testing, and optimization. She excels at examining industry trends and organizational dynamics for clients that result in meaningful analysis and plans that leverage strategy and translate into actionable and measurable tactics that impact results. As if that weren't enough, she's also an alumna. Woo! Please welcome Patricia Kendall.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here today. The topic is something I'm pretty passionate about. Part of what I work on, as well as all the things that were mentioned, which obviously was right off my LinkedIn profile, is personalization and user experience in providing the best user experience and personalized experience for clients, which is a very popular trend right now with organizations trying to craft that, trying to figure out what their strategy is, and doing it without being creepy. So that's the title. So we're going to talk about how organizations are leveraging that data to provide those personalized experiences. So we're going to go through a little bit of how that data is collected, the evolution of that, and then we're going to talk both about positive or meaningful experiences and the creepy side. And then we're going to do some polling and have some fun as well. Hopefully it'll be fun. So what is personalization? There's tons of definitions out there. This is one I like. Personalization refers to giving users what they need without them having to ask for it. So it's an intelligent experience that learns and adapts to the user based on behavior and the data that's collected about them. So it's not overt. The best forms of personalization are sort of natural. All right, so now let's get a little bit into the evolution of how data is collected. A lot of times today we think that, there's so much data out there and companies know so much about us, which is true and kind of not true. So when we look back at the evolution, like in the 90s, it was mostly your address. And think direct marketing. They would build lots of databases, but they would know a lot about you, about how you responded to offers or whatever they were communicating with you. But it was siloed, right? It was just in direct marketing. Then you add on the phone number, another piece of data that they can collect about you and customize how they're messaging you. Then email address. And in those first three, like in those days, the email address, they were pretty sure it was you, because not like today where we have 20 different email addresses. You sort of had one. Then we move into really the browser, the internet, right? So that's where cookies were collecting all sorts of data about what you were doing on sites. The black hole there it became less addressable. And addressable is sort of identifying who you are. Because especially with more devices, smartphones, I could have 10 different cookies, and you wouldn't be able to tell. You would think I was 10 different people because I do something on my phone, I do something on my iPad, I do something. And nowadays you do something on your your TV with your smart devices and your smart appliances, and it's all over the place. Well, now where we're at in 2018 and in the future, which is just going to expand, is the evolution of being able to connect all that data and to really identify you down to an ID. Sometimes sometimes they can identify Patricia Kendall, which is where you have to think through how you're going to use that data and make sure you don't go too far on the creepy scale. So this is sort of a visualization of that, of where, moving from that browser phase of data collection with cookies and device IDs and panels. Now there's a really clear picture of who you are. And there's all sorts of, you can look at it, the connecting, the addressing to people with marketing, and also using that data to design and develop personalized experiences, whether it's on an app, whether it's on a website, whether it's, well, you guys experience life, you know what's out there, right? So how do consumers, and it doesn't even have to be consumers, it could just be users who use this technology or want to engage with it, how do they think data should be used? So I pulled some stats from, just some industry publications. So 59% of Americans are willing to share data in return for some sort of customer experience or some sort of reciprocal, something they're going to get in back, right, from it. 40% say the data should be collected anonymously. Like, okay, you can have my data, but it should still be, think about it like almost like HIPAA, right? It's like, yes, you have the data, but it should all be protected, right? You shouldn't be able to get down to Patricia Kendall level. And then I thought this one was interesting because it's high, 75% of consumers reported finding most forms of personalization at least somewhat creepy. So that's where I see that as sort of on that continuum of this is so cool what we can do, both from an end user, like I like conveniences of all these experiences, whether, like I said, it's an app, ride sharing and, having food delivered, all sorts of stuff, but data powers all that, and so I'm willing to do all that, but I still know there's some elements of it that can be creepy. All right. So speaking of that creepy factor, this sort of illustrates some of on the other end of the continuum of how regulation is usually a little bit behind on technology. So GDPR is regulations in the European Union that is intended to put some guardrails around this of how data is collected and be more transparent. So some points around GDPR are, the consent for you to collect my data needs to be pretty explicit. I need to consent for you to collect the data. I need to know what you're doing with the data. People under 16 cannot consent, which you can imagine that gets tricky because how do you know they're 16, that type of thing. Special data like race and health and genetic information needs even more explicit consent. So those are just some of the highlights. I'm not going to go into GDPR, it's pretty complicated. But the other point is the United States does not have these type of regulations, but a lot of companies follow them. They're just voluntarily following them because, for a number of reasons, a lot of them are global companies anyway. So, and the other thing is it's good practice because it shows the end user, the consumer, that that you're responsible. You're using the data in a responsible manner. All right. So here's where my high school lack of AV skills comes in. Okay, so I think I need to. Oh, nope, don't need to do that. So this is a video embedded. I may need some AV help. It should. I don't see the
play link. So how did you embed it? Is it
it's a YouTube video.
Okay. Can we, if we end your display, it'll pop you out
Okay.
of here? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. And then, oh.
This is when I say in front of clients, this is, the embarrassing moment that I do deal with technology, and then I show it like this, right?
I don't think that there is a video embedded in here. we
Okay.
can keep playing it. Okay.
Okay.
Do you want, or we could open up an internet video and display the video just on YouTube. What would you prefer?
I don't know, how long, is that too complicated?
Why don't you can describe the video.
I'll just
Does
describe
that
it.
work? Okay. Great. If you want, while you're doing that, I can look it up
Shoot, and I
online.
tested this before I came.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So this is a YouTube video from a user experience group, and they went out and interviewed a bunch of people, like, what do you find creepy? You know, what are your experiences? And what I was intending to highlight here is how it's different for different people, right? So there was a father in one of the clips saying, well, if they were mentioning something about my children, I would find that creepy. You know, I may share that information, but I might not remember I shared the information, and it would seem creepy. But he didn't seem too freaked out if it was him, and you know, maybe he's like, I'm okay, you can share that information. There was one guy who said, I've never had a creepy experience. So on the far end, you know, maybe he's early adopter of technology, that type of thing. There were some older people who thought it was all very scary and creepy, and you know, gave examples of, you know, when I see these ads, and you know, looks like stuff I looked at on a website. Like, how do they know that? And like, somebody's watching me, and they were clearly freaked out about it. So there's a wide range of reactions, and some of it is demographics. You know, some of it is just where you are in life. I'm a parent. I'm more concerned with my kids. You know, there's probably research around millennials. They're more willing to give data because they want a certain experience. You know, older people, and these are generalizations because obviously they are very tech savvy, older people as well. Maybe not me today. I couldn't get the video to work, but so it just shows the range and what you need to sort of think about, and how when you're leveraging data, whether it's to attract people through marketing, or then, you know, getting them to the experience you want, how you're designing that. There's so much we can do with data, but it doesn't mean you should do it. That's where testing comes in. All right, so the next section, I pulled 5 super creepy. This would have been a better presentation if it was done before Halloween, now that I'm thinking about it. I could have had a whole Halloween theme, I think. So there's more examples out there, but 5 examples of some pretty extreme creepy factor. In fact, went way too far in the sense that there was negative repercussions for both the company or the organization, and for, you know, the people using the service or the technology. So, first one is someone is spying on you in your home. So this example, and some of these you've probably heard of, this example was in 2017, Samsung was sort of forced to admit that yes, the voice commands in their smart televisions were being listened and captured and then transmitted to third parties, which the consumer did not know that their TV was doing that. So that led to them being forced to advise their customers how to turn that off. You can probably think of other examples. The one that comes, not just one example, but every time Facebook has some sort of new feature, they seem to roll it out I'm sure in their minds as sort of a beta, but we're all sort of default in the settings, and we don't know how that information's being captured, and then everybody gets very upset, and Facebook is in reactive mode and has to tell you how to reset your settings and change that. All right. The next one is someone forgot. So the New York Times a few years ago reported on this woman who had signed up for an app that takes you through, the day-to-day experience of being pregnant. Unfortunately, she miscarried, let the app know. The app sends her a condolence, and then several months later, she got samples for baby formula, which would be a horrible experience. And I mean, this is obviously extreme because these are the creepy ones. But the way this happens is not being responsible with the data. So, they didn't suppress that data, and it, just slips through. All right. Someone is spying on you everywhere. So this is, you probably heard this one. This is the Uber. Uber's got a lot of creepy examples. So they had this tool called God View. When it was used in the right way, it could identify you in real time, and it was supposed to not be, totally identifiable. And then, the folks at Uber who have lots of parties and engagements and stuff would sort of play with this and see all this data real time. And then it was pointed out, oh, you actually can identify that person. You can see their face, and it wouldn't be hard on the internet to track them down and see where they are. And you are tracking them in real time where they are. So that was not good and creepy. The fourth one, someone thinks they know you. So this is an example of a woman who, she suspected her husband of having an affair, and they shared devices at their house. We shared devices. I mean, you would think we were had multiple personalities at my house with our Netflix account. And, I log on and I'm like, what is going on here? No, I do not want to watch Supergirl. So she was noticing all these ads for jewelry and lingerie, and she was pretty savvy. She knows how those ads work and pop up, and that just added to her suspicion, right? So she had more information to confront her husband. I don't know how this story ended. We can guess, but it definitely was not a good end experience for anybody involved. Somebody knows what you buy and why. This is an example from a company we all know and love here locally. So Target, you may have heard this story too, but Target does a lot of tracking of what you buy in store and what you buy online, and they do a whole lot of modeling about what that means. And in this case, there was a teenage girl who was pregnant and hadn't told her father, her parents yet. And she started getting coupon books and different samples and stuff for baby items. And her dad was confused and called up Target and got some strange, he wasn't satisfied with the answers. Some journalists got involved, which is a lot of times how these sort of explode, is journalists get involved and track down how this data is being used. And then it was exposed, and then this poor girl tried to tell her father she was, yes, pregnant. The continuing kind of creepy thing on this is Target still does this, it just doesn't seem creepy. So they still do all that modeling, they still collect the data that if you download their Red app thing and their credit card, all that kind of stuff, all that data, they still do the modeling, and they still are sending you specific things because what they think they know about you. But they'll throw in this case, if it was a baby formula coupon, the next one would be hedge clippers. So it looks generic, and you think, oh, everybody got those same offers. Or if it's on the app, it's oh, everybody gets these coupons. These are the same for everybody. So it's still creepy, it just doesn't seem creepy. So, I mean, creepy, or This case, it was creepy. It went too far because this poor girl was pregnant and, you know, something got divulged that she did not want to divulge. But on the flip side, we probably all enjoy that convenience of getting coupons and offers and all that kind of stuff. All right. This next phase, more technology. Let's hope it works. I've embedded a tool called Poll Everywhere. If it doesn't work, we'll just raise our hands. I can go low tech. But if you have a phone, you can take it out and text to the number 22333, Patricia Kend 159. I'll give you a minute, and like I said, if it doesn't work, we'll just.
So you're totally storing this data, right? You're going to use it later on?
Poll Everywhere might. So if you don't want to do it, you can just raise your hand, you know. All right, you should get a text back from Poll Everywhere saying, hey, you're good to go. Do we have, does it seem like everybody? Okay. If not, just raise your hand. All right, so these next several examples, we're gonna vote on what we think is creepy and what's not creepy. So the first example is you can use a fingerprint scanning to pay for items, you know, and get those items delivered at home. You know, keep in mind they're tracking what you're buying. Is that, and also keep in mind they could potentially sell the data. It's just like yes or no. So it's probably. A is yes, B is no.
A is creepy, B is not creepy.
Yes, but now I think the poll everywhere is not really embedded in here, right? Because we have internet, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to figure out here, is if this is not if it's live or not. Is there do you have another, like, is there a place to go to get it?
No, it usually it has to be in a slideshow presentation, which it is.
Yeah. Just trying to think if there's any.
Shoot.
I don't necessarily want to count.
Because usually you'll see like almost like an internet, like, oh, it clicks in,
Sorry,
it's
I'm
gonna work.
checking something
No.
here. Let's see.
So if you go to slideshow, yeah, go to current. Let's see. It doesn't. Why isn't it showing up? That's so weird.
Okay.
No.
Well, we know that everybody is participating because I just got a text saying this poll has received the maximum number of responses.
Okay.
See, it would have been so cool. It would have been so cool.
This can be cool too. If you
It would have been so cool.
see that an app can use your fingerprint to know
Yeah.
what you're buying and have it delivered to your house, raise your hand. Creepy.
Okay, I'm too creepy. I don't know why it's not doing it. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Hands down.
Oh, hold on.
Not creepy.
So do you have this? Is this like where I would find it?
Not creepy. Then creepy. Who wants to say?
Yeah.
Why is that not
I don't know.
creepy to you?
I'll just talk through it.
Okay, you sure?
About a company
gonna say,
knowing your fingerprint, your address, your credit card number, and
Try
what you
one
like.
thing real quick.
What's not creepy about that? Yes. All right. So it's not creepy because it's convenient, or it's creepy and convenient?
Just convenience, because if you look at Netflix, if you look at anything that's on your phone, it's on your phone for a reason, and the reason companies on your
So
phone.
we'll see if it works. When poll is active, respond
Okay.
to
So I'm
this.
hearing it's a good business model. Other companies do it. It's not creepier than
It's just not working.
Am I making that, that decision that the value I'm receiving from it is worth?
Okay,
That was my backup anyway.
that's weird. Yeah, that's great.
Your choice.
Okay.
We got to decide. Anything else? Yeah.
It feels more secure because it is my fingerprint instead of just a login ID and password.
Sure, so nobody
Need my
can,
fingers in order to do it.
yeah. Unless they've got your finger, they can't fake the order. Okay. Wow.
We could get even more. We could get even more creepy.
I didn't
Do you
even,
have
maybe I'm betraying my age, but I immediately was like, creepy, oh my gosh. But you guys are starting to convince me. What was your,
So my understanding, I have a couple of friends who are like penetration testers and they do a lot of security related stuff. There is still litigation, like they're still trying to figure out whether or not a police officer or law body within the United States can compel you to give your fingerprint. We know based on the Fifth Amendment that they cannot compel you to tell them your username or password. And that's actually one of the reasons why our company will not be going to fingerprint scanning on laptops.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. We'll just talk through it. Imagine how cool my technology would have been, okay? Just imagine. I practiced it in front of my teenagers. They were impressed, so, which is a tough crowd, right? All right, so what about different wearables? Whether it's clothing wearables, watches that have sensors that track different things. And in exchange, you get offers or something like that. And some of these have layers on, so you're probably thinking, oh, I use my little watch and stuff. But what about for insurance rates? What about, and there are some car insurance companies that do this. You can opt to have some sort of device. But what if it's health insurance and they're monitoring your heart rate? They're monitoring, creepy, not creepy? How many people think it's creepy? You're probably opting in. So it goes back to that kind of continuum of how much data we want to share for convenience. How many people don't think it's creepy and or they're all in? You might have been that guy in that the video. He said, "I've never had a creepy experience. They're good. I'm good." Well, this is definitely something insurance companies are looking at more and more and experimenting with if people are interested. I mean, especially healthcare costs the way they are, like if they're interested and I'm really fit, and think of it as a progression of, they try to get you to go to the gym and you track how many times you go to the gym and they'll give you a little discount. This kind of takes it to the next level. Okay, we'll skip that. So an augmented reality app that allows you to view products in a store and then displays, similar information or makes recommendations on if you need to replenish items at home, like they kind of track what you buy. Creepy? Awesome. So not creepy? People think it's not so creepy? All right, I'll just layer one in. Let's just remember they're tracking what you buy. Do you want them to know you eat 10 gallons of Haagen-Dazs a week, or I mean they can sort of develop a profile of who you are. All right. All the smart devices in your home, right? The voice assistants, providing that personalized product information. Obviously, Alexa tied right to Amazon. It comes right to your house. A lot of you probably use those. Creepy, not creepy? Creepy. Well, we've heard stories about Alexa, right? And some of the creepy factor. And, think back to the super creepy Samsung one where, they're collecting, or you've probably heard baby monitor stories as well. All right. So you get a text from a brick and mortar, like a brand walking by, Maybe they say, hey, how do we, check out our holiday specials. You have already opted in, and you're sharing, maybe you have an app or something, you're sharing your data with them. But they know your location. So is that creepy? Invasive.
It's essentially like every corporation, your big brother, but you're giving away data. So it's kind of the social norm for it not to be creepy anymore, just because you don't really value your data as much. It's not real money. But if you actually knew how it is your money, you would think it's creepy.
If you knew how valuable it was to to organizations, yes, that's a good point. Anybody else? I'm not sure what I would get out of this, even if I didn't think it was creepy.
Personally, I think it's great. Then when I walk through a store, I don't have to hear the spiel by the person selling it.
Oh,
I just want to go in, do my thing. If I'm interested in the text, then I'll look at it. If I'm not, then I'll just
so you like the little small Amazon stores with nobody's in there, and you just grab what you want, and you say, here's my phone, I love it.
There's a scene in Minority Report where it takes it for the next extreme, which is they're reading your retina, they're identifying you through your retina, and they're serving up advertisements at my stores.
Yeah.
You've got this holographic storm around you of advertising dedicated to you specifically.
Yeah, which is, not that they do it with your retina, but it's, smart billboards are starting to do that, where they know who you are, you're in the car, you may have, some device in your car, they're tracking, they'll put up a billboard specific for you. I know. See, this would have been better before Halloween. You guys would have had nightmares, right? All right, digital screens in dressing rooms, and again, you've opted, yeah, right. You've opted in, like on some sort of app. Maybe it's a loyalty program. Like I want coupons, I want stuff. So they know you've come into the store. They know what you bought before, So and this screen is going to give you suggestions of what to try on, that type of thing. I get the sense that one's creepy. Everybody's creepy. There are examples that and these aren't like future, like these are things people are testing out. Like these aren't like, oh, we could do this, and like there are stores testing this stuff out. So yes, there could be a device that the sales, or maybe not too long in the future, a robot, okay, I know Mrs. Kendall's in dressing room, hey, she bought this, but last time, let's say, we know her size, whatever, here's like a personal shopper. Some people might like that, right?
You keep your toddler right next to you, you don't have to chase them around the store.
See, now you're starting to like it. See?
It feels a lot to me like convenience trumps creepy. So even if it's creepy, if it's providing a sense of convenience to you, many
Yeah.
people just overlook the creepy factor. But like this example, it's never convenient for me to have ads thrown at me while I'm
Right.
in the dressing room.
Right, yeah.
So you can't
Yeah.
see a reason that is anything
Yeah.
else than creepy.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to that one stat about the 75% of people find personalization at least somewhat creepy. It's like, there's a creep factor everywhere, but we all make that trade-off, right? Yeah, if I want Uber to pick me up, I'm gonna have to let them know where I am, right? I'm gonna have to share that. So let's say so they know you're part of their program, you probably boarded with with the app. A flight attendant, wishes you a happy birthday when you board. And then she walks down the aisle and hands you a Bloody Mary, because that's the drink you had the last 10 times you were on. Then, what if it's 10 in the morning and you're sitting next to your boss? So this one is sort of an example of taking it too far. Like at the first, yeah, you know me. Hi, Mrs. Kendall, happy birthday, whatever. Like that doesn't seem too intrusive, right? But if you know, go down, like this could end up having some bad implications, right? Sitting next to your boss, you know. Creepy? Or maybe if they kept it at the highest level and didn't push it too far.
They have to give you an option. If they say happy birthday, would you like a drink?
There
Not
you go.
creepy. Yeah, that's what restaurant burgers do. But if they're like, oh, happy birthday with a drink, I'm
Yeah.
like, it's 10 in the morning. The last 10 times I flew was like 4 or 5 at night.
Right, right. I mean, I like a free drink on the flight, so I don't know. But you can see, and this is actually stuff airlines are like thinking about and experimenting with and trying to figure out what is the creepy line and how far.
Is it about taking agency away from you? Like you don't really have control over whether you get served a drink?
It's consent.
Consent?
Consent. That's the line.
Yep.
But privacy about one's birthday. I'm not interested in a stranger wishing me happy birthday. Or no,
I don't keep my birthday on Facebook. I'm like, I don't need everybody in the network, right? So, but that's where, if you'd seen the video, right? That's where the creepy factor is also personal. Because what I think is creepy, you might not think is creepy. And that's the sort of the puzzle that organizations and people who design experiences have to figure out is just like, no longer can we do just mass marketing to everybody, but the idea of personalization, you also have to identify and pick up on the negative signals, right? And then customize it, right? So if you think it's creepy, I'm not going to do that for you anymore. I'm not going to tell you your birthday. I'm not going to offer you a drink. No. But somebody else might be like, yes, I'm all in. And again, some of it could be age groups, right? Like, my teenagers horrify me with what they share. I'm like, what? What? And because I know where the data's going. They're like, what? What's the big deal? I got a shirt. I'm like, oh, don't do that. Where then on other spectrums, I mean, my father does not even he doesn't have a computer, doesn't have a smartphone, anything. He drives to the bank, talks to the teller, there's nothing online. All right. This is a little more on the marketing side, not necessarily an experience, but you may not know that Twitter actually sells your emoji data to marketers. And they use that data to develop a profile. So the different types might they'll make assumptions, right? If you're using a lot of multicultural emojis, that might say something about you. If, I don't know what they'd say about me. I only use the smiley face. My kids make fun of me because I have one emoji. But in this case, Toyota, this is a real marketing campaign, so they target ads to people based on whatever profile they've developed from your emoji use. Creepy? Creepy? Now you're all thinking about what emojis you use, right? But a lot of these platforms, that's their business model. Data is currency, so they're selling that data. All right, Spotify running. Some of you may use this. I run. I'm old, so I have an old, tiny little shuffle, Apple Shuffle that they don't make anymore. That's what I run with. So, and the music hasn't been updated in 5 years. It's the same thing. But if you use Spotify running, they'll use sensors to detect how fast you're running. So then they'll customize a playlist, like, oh, they need something a little faster or whatever, or they seem to be in cool down, maybe we'll play something slow, that type of thing. Is that creepy? That's useful? No, like that? Well, in this case, I don't think it is, but you should never assume it's not. So you should find out, going back to consent, find out what their privacy policy is and how they're using the data. So this is an example. I actually got this email. It was not a big deal, but when I saw it, they're obviously collecting, I've been part of using their tool for a long time, so I send out evites for, my family, like Thanksgiving's at 12, you bring this, you do, that type of thing. And I've attended 25 events. My first event was a Halloween party. And it was just an email, and it was like, hey, great, you've been part of us for 5 years, isn't this fabulous? But what if that first event was horrible? What if I got dumped or something at that Halloween party? Like, and it was a big graphic email, and it was like animated, and that could have been pretty awful, right? So what do you think? This is creepy, not creepy? It's not. Right. It's kind of desperate, right? It's one of those cool things that marketers and even people who develop experiences, like, I have the data, I could do this, but should you? Like, what, does that improve anything for me? No, it was just, and it could have been bad, and think back to the woman who had the miscarriage, could have been baby showers and all sorts of stuff, and, so I'm with you. I didn't think it was, but they have the data. There's, all the big data. They have the data. It's a matter of should you use it. All right. So those were my examples. I have some summary slides, but I'll open it up if you guys want to maybe share some creepy things you've experienced, or.
Well, I'm sort of arriving at a hypothesis while going through this, and I think that what feels creepy to me is when I don't understand what's going on, and so therefore what the implications could be of what's happening.
Yeah.
So the creepiness for me is a lack of understanding. For example, the mirror scenario you presented.
Yes.
If that's something that I built myself and I know it's not connected to the internet, there's no way anyone else can access it, there's no creep factor.
Right.
To me, it doesn't matter at all. All the creepiness is what if someone else gets this or does something with it that I don't want them to do. So
Yep.
I would say that there are lots of things that are an inappropriate use of data that I'm not comfortable with, I don't want them to do. But whether or not something feels icky or creepy to me is dependent upon how much I don't understand what's happening.
Right. And unfortunately, there's a lot we don't understand. I mean, I know more than I should, but because I actually help clients figure out how to use data. So, but this is a passionate for me because I can't tell you how many times I'm in meetings and people get excited. They're like, well, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. And I'm like, why? Like, unless you're telling me it provides some sort of better experience or value, then you're just doing it to do it, and then it runs the risk of either being irrelevant or creepy, or
Do you ever run the risk that there is an idea that comes up by one of those people, but the business model behind that idea is so good that you put the user in jeopardy?
there's plenty of organizations that do that. And as a consultant, I tell them, wrong. But
Find any that are like right on the line where you're like, that is a good idea. I'm not sure that would work. Like, you question it yourself.
that's where testing comes in play, and all of you who do user experience and design, like testing, right? So test. Don't put it out to everybody, right? Test it out, see, do some research, you know, see, because that's another thing people butt up against, because organizations are so stressed about digital disruption, and, you know, we have to be cutting edge, we have to, you know, we have to have all the cool tools. That's how some things that get deployed that aren't cool, like the Evite thing, that's not so cool. But they're, you know, they're being pushed by leadership, like, we have to be digital first, we have to, you know, and there is a lot of disruption in different industries as well. I mean, you know, and you have Amazon in the play that makes everybody nervous. It makes people's lives easier. I use Amazon, but it also, for companies, it's like, oh, you know, they're going to come into healthcare and change, you know, change everything. They're going to, you know, and that makes organizations very stressed about pushing the envelope, and then obviously not going too far.
You've got one more.
Okay.
I think the thing about this though, like assuming that there's good intentions behind the companies who are trying to reach their users for any specific reason, what's really disconcerting for me is just the thought of how secure is my data with them? What is the likelihood that this is going to end up hacked or in the wrong hands of someone else? That's where it really gets
Yeah.
troubling.
And it's the genie out of the bottle, right? Like, we know they get hacked, because most of us, there's high likelihood we were, you know, part of the Target hack, the Home Depot hack, you name it, right?
If I may piggyback off of that comment, and I admit I was disheartened by how many people thought these weren't creepy, and that's because this data, it's being sold. There is no real good intention behind it. It's money. It's all about money, and getting your attention and stealing your attention by your consent, and then they sell that data to the larger corporations that or whoever, and then it turns into a proxy for your credit ratings, for
Yep.
your career, for all these really, it seems seemingly unrelated, irrelevant, like why are they using this as a proxy for who I am?
Right.
And the fact that people didn't find that creepy because they opted in, that's a problem. And I think that there needs to be a law in place, because there's a lack of ethics. There's a lack of real understanding about what's being used with this seemingly innocuous data.
Right, and we don't have strong, I mean, and people could argue the GDPR is not that strong either, but at least they're trying to put the genie a little closer to the bottle, maybe. All right, so really quickly, because I know we're up against time, these are sort of the themes, and these are what I advise organizations, like, collect only the data that matters, you know, to delivering a good experience, not just because you can. It's going to provide some sort of value. Start with small, simple, kind of low creepy factor, you know, just recognizing that I came back to the store or something like that. You know, stay away from those overt marketing tactics. Just because you have the data. I heard one client recently said to me, well, as long as the message is relevant, we could hit them as many times as we want, right? And I'm like, I don't know, but okay. Use personalization to add value, again, not just because you can. And again, the user experience is good when it seems subtle, like it's not like, you don't have that aha moment of like, oh, I gave them this data, this is why I'm having this experience, and I don't really like it. And then following the GDPR guidelines. All right.
Thank you.